Hey there, you looking kinda cute. Don't forget to subscribe and check out my other socials for more. Enjoy.
This is going to be epic,
he muttered, examining his handiwork. Case had always loved Halloween, but this year he wanted to do something truly transformative. The idea had struck him weeks ago. Why not become someone entirely different? Not just a character, but a whole new person. With meticulous care, he poured plaster into the alginate mold, creating a positive cast of his face. Once it had set, he began the painstaking process of altering the features. Using modeling clay and putty, he softened the sharp angles of his jaw, rounded out his cheekbones, and subtly reshaped his nose. Hours ticked by as Case sculpted and refined, stepping back occasionally to assess his progress. Finally, satisfied with the alterations, he created a new mold from the modified cast. The next step was crafting the actual mask. Case opted for a high-quality silicone that would allow for realistic movement and expression. Layer by layer, he built up the mask, paying close attention to the edges to ensure a seamless blend with his own skin. As the mask cured, Case browsed online for the perfect wig. After much deliberation, he settled on a medium-length style in a warm chestnut brown. It arrived a few days later, and he couldn't resist trying it on immediately. Standing before the mirror, Case was struck by how different he looked with just the addition of the wig. It framed his face softly, lending an air of femininity even without the mask or any other alterations. A thrill of excitement coursed through him. "Violette!" he called out to his sister. "Can you come here for a sec?" Footsteps approached, and Violette appeared in the doorway. Her eyes widened as she took in the sight of her brother. "Whoa!" she said, a grin spreading across her face. "Looking good, sis!" Case laughed, running his fingers through the silky strands of the wig. "Thanks, but I'm gonna need your help with the rest." Violette's eyes lit up. "Oh, this is going to be fun. What do you need?" "Well," Case began, suddenly feeling a bit sheepish, "I was hoping you could teach me how to, move more like a woman and maybe help me pick out some clothes." His sister's grin widened. "Absolutely. Let's start with the basics, walking in heels." Over the next few weeks, Case's transformation began to take shape. Violette proved to be an invaluable teacher, guiding him through the nuances of feminine body language and movement. "Smaller steps," she instructed as Case teetered across the room in a pair of modest pumps. "And let your hips sway naturally. Don't force it." Case concentrated, trying to find the right balance between grace and stability. It was harder than he'd anticipated, but with each practice session, he grew more confident. They moved on to sitting, standing, and even subtle gestures. Violette demonstrated how to cross his legs elegantly, how to tilt his head just so when listening, and how to use his hands expressively without appearing overly dramatic. "Remember," she said, "it's not about putting on an act. It's about embodying a different aspect of yourself." As Case's movements became more fluid and natural, they turned their attention to clothing. Violette took him shopping, helping him navigate the unfamiliar territory of women's fashion.
"We'll start with the basics,"
she explained as they browsed through racks of clothing. "A nice dress, a skirt and blouse combo, and some casual wear. Oh, and don't forget underwear. It makes a big difference in how clothes fit." Case felt a mix of excitement and nervousness as he tried on different outfits in the dressing room. He emerged in a knee-length navy dress, feeling exposed and uncertain. Violette's face lit up. "Oh, that's perfect. It really complements your body shape. How does it feel?" "Different," Case admitted, smoothing the fabric over his hips. "But kind of nice, actually." They left the store with several bags of carefully selected items, including shoes, accessories, and even a few pieces of jewelry. Case felt a strange sense of anticipation as they drove home, eager to try everything on again in the privacy of his room. The final piece of the puzzle was makeup. Violette sat Case down at her vanity, spreading out an array of products. "Okay, let's start with skincare," she began. "Moisturizer is key, especially when you're wearing a mask. Then we'll move on to foundation, concealer, and powder. Case watched intently as Violette demonstrated each step, explaining the purpose of each product and the best techniques for application. He was surprised by the complexity of it all, but also fascinated by the gradual transformation he saw in the mirror. "Now for the fun part," Violette said with a grin, picking up an eyeshadow palette. "Let's make those eyes pop." She showed him how to blend different shades, create depth with eyeliner, and apply mascara without poking himself in the eye. By the time she finished with a swipe of rose-tinted lip gloss, Case barely recognized himself. "Wow," he breathed, leaning in close to the mirror. "Is that really me?" Violette squeezed his shoulder. "It sure is. You look amazing." Over the next few days, Case practiced applying makeup on his own, gradually becoming more confident with each attempt. He experimented with different looks, from subtle and natural to bold and dramatic. As Halloween approached, Violette had a suggestion. "You know," she said one evening as they sat in her room, "instead of just dressing as a woman for Halloween, why don't you dress as a woman in a costume?" Case considered this, intrigued. "What do you mean?" "Well, you've put all this effort into creating a female persona. Why not take it a step further and have her dress up as something else? It adds another layer to the transformation." The idea appealed to Case. That could be fun, but what should I, or she, dress up as? Violette tapped her chin thoughtfully. "How about a classic, like a witch or a vampire or... Oh, I know. What about a 1950s pinup girl? That would be perfect with your new look." Case's eyes lit up. "That's brilliant. I can just imagine the retro hairstyle, the polka dot dress, the red lipstick." "Exactly." Violette clapped her hands excitedly. "And it'll give you a chance to really play with the character. You can come up with a whole backstory for her." They spent the rest of the evening planning the costume, researching 1950s fashion and makeup styles. Case felt a growing sense of excitement as the character began to take shape in his mind. The night before Halloween, Case stood before his full-length mirror, taking in the complete transformation for the first time. The silicone mask blended seamlessly with his skin, softening his features into a delicate, feminine visage. The wig was styled into victory rolls, a classic 1950s look that framed his face beautifully. He wore a red and white polka dot dress that cinched at the waist, emphasizing the curves he'd created with careful padding. White gloves extended past his wrists, and a pair of red kitten heels completed the outfit. Case took a deep breath, watching his reflection do the same. It was strange and exhilarating to see this other person staring back at him, a person who had always existed somewhere inside him, now brought to life. "Well," he said softly, his voice pitched higher than usual. "Hello there, Kathy." The name had come to him suddenly, feeling right for this new persona. Kathy smiled back at him from the mirror, her red lips curving upwards confidently. Case, now Kathy, practiced walking around the room, letting her hips sway naturally with each step. She perched on the edge of the bed, crossing her legs at the ankle as Violette had taught her. Every movement felt both foreign and familiar, as if she were remembering how to use muscles she'd forgotten she had. A knock at the door startled her. "Come in!" she called out, surprised by how easily the higher pitch came to her now. Violette entered, her eyes widening as she took in the sight before her. "Oh my God," she breathed. "Case, you look incredible. I mean, should I call you Kathy now?" Kathy smiled, feeling a warm glow of pride. "For tonight, at least. What do you think? Did I get the look right?" "You nailed it," Violette assured her, circling around to take in every detail. "The dress is perfect, the hair is spot on, and your makeup... Wow! You did that yourself?" "I had a good teacher," Kathy replied with a wink. Violette laughed. "Well, the student has become the master. You ready for the party?" Kathy stood, smoothing down her dress. "As ready as I'll ever be. Let's do this." They headed downstairs, where their parents were waiting to see the final result of Case's mysterious costume project. Their mother gasped audibly when Kathy entered the room, while their father's eyebrows shot up in surprise. "Case?" their mother said uncertainly. "Is that you?" Kathy smiled, giving a little twirl. "It's Kathy tonight, Mom. What do you think?" I'm speechless," their mother admitted. "You look absolutely beautiful. I can't believe how different you look." Their father nodded in agreement.
It's incredible, son. Or should I say daughter? He chuckled, clearly impressed. You've always had a talent for costumes, but this takes the cake.
Kathy felt a rush of relief and happiness at their reactions. "Thanks, Mom and Dad. I'm glad you like it." "Like it? We love it!" their mother exclaimed. "Oh, we need pictures. Let me get my camera." As their mother bustled off to find her camera, their father approached Kathy.
You know, he said quietly, your grandfather would have loved this. He always said Halloween was about becoming someone else entirely, even if just for one night. You've certainly achieved that.
Kathy felt a lump form in her throat. Their grandfather had passed away a few years ago, but he had always encouraged Case's love of costumes and theatrics. "Thanks, Dad," she managed, her voice thick with emotion. Their mother returned with the camera, and a small photo shoot ensued. Kathy posed in various pinup-inspired positions, blowing kisses at the camera and winking coyly over her shoulder. With each click of the shutter, she felt more and more comfortable in her new skin. Finally, it was time to leave for the Halloween party. Kathy felt a flutter of nervousness in her stomach as she and Violette got into the car. "What if someone recognizes me?" she asked, suddenly anxious. Violette squeezed her hand reassuringly. "Trust me, no one's going to recognize you. And even if they do, so what? It's Halloween. Everyone's going to be impressed by how amazing your costume is." Kathy took a deep breath, nodding. "You're right. I've worked hard on this. Time to show it off." They arrived at the party, which was being held at their friend Mark's house. Music pulsed from inside, and costumed figures milled about on the front lawn. Kathy hesitated for a moment before stepping out of the car, her heart pounding. As they approached the house, heads turned. Kathy could hear whispers and exclamations, but they seemed to be of admiration rather than recognition. She straightened her spine, channeling the confidence of her new persona. Mark greeted them at the door, dressed as a zombie. His eyes widened as he took in Kathy's appearance.
"Wow," he said, clearly impressed. "Great costume. I don't think we've met before. I'm Mark."
Kathy exchanged a quick glance with Violette, suppressing a grin. "I'm Kathy," she replied, extending a gloved hand. "Violette's friend. She invited me along. I hope that's okay."
"More than okay,"
Mark assured her, ushering them inside.
"Any friend of Violette's is welcome here. Make yourself at home."
As they moved through the crowded house, Kathy felt a surge of exhilaration. No one recognized her. She was, for all intents and purposes, a different person tonight. It was liberating in a way she hadn't expected. They made their way to the kitchen, where drinks and snacks were laid out. Kathy carefully selected a red cup, mindful of her lipstick. As she turned around, she found herself face to face with Jason, one of Case's closest friends. For a moment, Kathy froze, certain she was about to be discovered. But Jason just smiled, his eyes appreciative.
"Hey there,"
he said, his voice pitched low in an attempt to be suave. "Love the costume. Very classic." Kathy felt a rush of relief, quickly followed by amusement. She'd known Jason for years, and here he was trying to flirt with her. "Why, thank you," she replied, allowing a hint of a southern drawl to color her words. "I do love a bit of vintage glamour." Jason leaned in closer. "So what's your name, beautiful?" "Kathy," she replied, fighting back a laugh. "And you are?"
"Jason,"
he said, puffing out his chest slightly. He was dressed as a cowboy, complete with a cheap plastic sheriff's badge. "So, Kathy, what brings you to our little shindig?" Kathy gestured towards Violette, who was watching the exchange with barely concealed glee. "Oh, I'm a friend of Violette's. She invited me along." Jason nodded, clearly trying to remember if he'd ever heard Violette mention a friend named Kathy. Well, I'm glad she did. Maybe I could show you around, introduce you to some people. For a moment, Kathy was tempted to agree, curious to see how long she could keep up the charade. But she caught Violette's eye and saw her sister shaking her head slightly. That's very kind of you, Kathy said. But I think I'll stick with Violette for now. It was nice meeting you, Jason. She moved away, leaving Jason looking slightly disappointed. Violette immediately burst into giggles. Oh my God, she whispered. I can't believe he was hitting on you. Kathy felt her cheeks warm beneath the mask. I know! I thought for sure he'd recognize me. Not a chance, Violette assured her. You look and sound completely different. Plus, let's be honest, Jason's not exactly known for his powers of observation. They shared a laugh, then made their way to the living room where most of the partygoers had gathered. Kathy found herself the center of attention, with people complimenting her costume and asking where she'd gotten such a realistic mask. She fell easily into the role of Kathy, crafting a backstory on the fly. She was a vintage clothing enthusiast, she told them, who worked as a librarian. She loved old movies and swing dancing and collected antique brooches. With each interaction, the character of Kathy became more real, more fully formed. As the night wore on, Kathy found herself genuinely enjoying the party in a way Case never had. She was more outgoing, more confident, freed from the usual social anxieties that plagued him. She danced, she laughed, she flirted harmlessly with both men and women. At one point, someone suggested a game of charades. Kathy enthusiastically joined in, using her newfound grace and expressiveness to act out her clues. Her team cheered as she successfully mimed Gone with the Wind in record time, her exaggerated Southern belle gestures earning laughs from everyone. It was nearing midnight when Kathy finally felt the need for some fresh air. She slipped out onto the back porch, breathing in the cool night air. The sounds of the party were muffled out here, replaced by the gentle rustling of leaves in the breeze. She leaned against the railing, looking up at the stars. It had been an incredible night, beyond anything she had imagined when she first started planning this costume. She felt as though she had discovered a whole new side of herself, one that had always been there, waiting to be unleashed. Beautiful night, isn't it? The voice startled Kathy out of her reverie. She turned to see a young woman standing nearby, dressed as a fairy, complete with glittering wings and a flower crown. It took Kathy a moment to recognize her as Emma, a girl from Case's English class. It certainly is, Kathy replied, smiling. Sometimes you need to step away from the noise to appreciate it. Emma nodded, moving to stand beside her at the railing. I know what you mean. Don't get me wrong. I love a good party, but sometimes it's nice to just breathe. They stood in comfortable silence for a moment, both gazing up at the starry sky. Kathy found herself studying Emma out of the corner of her eye. She'd always thought Emma was pretty, but had been too shy as Case to ever talk to her much. Now, as Kathy, she felt a strange mix of attraction and envy. I love your costume, by the way, Emma said suddenly. It's so authentic looking. Did you make it yourself? Kathy nodded, pleased. Most of it, yes. The dress is vintage, but I did all the alterations. And the mask, of course. Emma's eyes widened. You made that mask? That's incredible. It looks so real. Thank you, Kathy replied, feeling a warm glow of pride. It took a lot of work, but I'm happy with how it turned out. You should be, Emma said earnestly. You know, it's funny. I feel like I know you from somewhere, but I can't quite place it. Have we met before? Kathy felt a momentary panic, but quickly recovered. Oh, I don't think so. I'm not from around here, just visiting a friend. Emma nodded, though she still looked slightly puzzled. Well, it's nice to meet you now. I'm Emma, by the way. Kathy, she replied, extending her hand. As Emma shook it, Kathy felt a strange flutter in her stomach. Was this how Case would have felt talking to his crush? Or was this something new, something uniquely Kathy? They fell into easy conversation, discussing their mutual love of old movies and books. Kathy found herself genuinely enjoying Emma's company, appreciating her quick wit and warm laugh in a way Case never had the confidence to do. As they talked, Kathy became aware of a growing tension between them. Emma kept glancing at her lips, her eyes lingering a bit too long to be casual. Kathy felt her heart rate increase, a mix of excitement and nervousness coursing through her. "You know," Emma said softly, leaning in slightly, "there's something about you, Kathy. Something magnetic. I can't quite put my finger on it." Kathy swallowed hard, her mind racing. This was uncharted territory. As Case, he'd never been in this situation with a girl. As Kathy, she felt both thrilled and terrified. Thank you," Kathy managed, her voice barely above a whisper. "You're pretty magnetic yourself." Emma smiled, moving closer. "Maybe it's the magic of Halloween. Becoming someone else for a night. Being free to do things you normally wouldn't." Their faces were inches apart now. Kathy could smell Emma's flowery perfume, could see the flecks of gold in her green eyes. Time seemed to slow down as Emma leaned in, her eyes fluttering closed. For a split second, Kathy was tempted to let it happen. To experience a kiss as Kathy, to see how it might be different. But as Emma's lips nearly brushed hers, reality came crashing back. Kathy turned her head at the last moment, Emma's kiss landing softly on her cheek instead. "I'm sorry," Kathy said quickly, stepping back. I can't. It's not you. It's just complicated." Emma blinked, looking confused and a bit hurt. "Oh, I'm sorry. I thought... Never mind. I shouldn't have assumed." "No, please don't apologize," Kathy insisted. "You didn't do anything wrong. It's just... there's someone else. Sort of. It's hard to explain." Emma nodded, though she still looked perplexed. "I understand. Well, not really, but it's okay. No hard feelings." An awkward silence fell between them. Kathy felt terrible, knowing she'd have to face Emma as Case in class on Monday. How could she explain this situation without revealing everything? "I should probably get back inside," Emma said finally. "It was nice meeting you, Kathy. I hope things work out with your complicated situation." As Emma turned to leave, Kathy felt a sudden urge to say something, anything to make this right. "Emma, wait!" she called out. Emma paused, looking back expectantly. Kathy took a deep breath. "I just want you to know you're an amazing person. Anyone would be lucky to be with you, and someday someone's going to appreciate you for exactly who you are. You deserve that." A small smile tugged at Emma's lips. "Thank you, Kathy. That's really sweet of you to say." With a final nod, Emma disappeared back into the house, leaving Kathy alone with her tumultuous thoughts. She leaned heavily against the railing, her mind reeling from what had just happened. The night had taken an unexpected turn, bringing up feelings and questions she wasn't prepared to face. After a few minutes of solitude, Kathy heard the back door open again. She turned to see Violette stepping out onto the porch, a concerned look on her face. "Hey," Violette said softly. "Everything okay? I saw Emma come back inside looking a bit upset." Kathy sighed, running a hand through her wig. "It's complicated. Can we go home? I think I've had enough of being Kathy for one night." Violette nodded, understanding. "Of course. Let me just grab our coats and we'll head out." As they drove home in silence, Kathy stared out the window, watching the Halloween decorations blur past. She felt a strange mix of emotions. Exhilaration from the success of her costume, confusion about her interaction with Emma, and a growing sense of melancholy as she realized the night was coming to an end. Back in the safety of Case's room, Kathy carefully removed the wig, the mask, the padding, and the clothes. With each item she took off, she felt Kathy slipping away, replaced by the familiar form of Case. Violette helped him remove the last traces of makeup, her touch gentle as she wiped away the lipstick and mascara. "So," she said softly, "do you want to talk about what happened?" Case sighed, looking at his reflection in the mirror. It was strange to see his own face again after a night of being someone else.
Emma almost kissed me, he admitted. Or rather, she almost kissed Kathy.
Violette's eyes widened. Wow, that's intense. How do you feel about that? Confused, Case replied honestly. Part of me wanted to let it happen, to see what it would be like. But it felt wrong, like I'd be deceiving her. And then there's the fact that I've had a crush on Emma for months. But I've never had the courage to talk to her as myself.
Violette nodded thoughtfully. That's a lot to process. But, maybe this experience can give you the confidence to talk to her as Case. You've seen that she's interested in aspects of your personality, even if she didn't know it was you?
Case considered this. It was true that he'd connected with Emma in a way he never had before. Maybe there was something to build on there.
Maybe you're right, he said slowly. I don't know how to bridge the gap between Kathy and Case. They feel like two separate people sometimes.
Violette squeezed his shoulder gently.
They're both you, Case.
Kathy is just a part of you that you don't usually let out, but she's in there all the time. Maybe this experience can help you integrate those parts of yourself, be more confident as Case. Case nodded, feeling a glimmer of hope. I'd like that. I felt so free tonight, so confident. I want to hold on to that feeling. You can, Violette assured him.
It might take some time, but you can bring more of Kathy into your everyday life. Not the physical transformation, necessarily, but the confidence, the charm, the openness. Those are all you, Case. You just needed Kathy to help you find them.
As Case crawled into bed that night, his mind was still buzzing with the events of the evening. He thought about the people he'd met, the conversations he'd had, the way he'd felt in Kathy's skin. It had been more than just a costume. It had been a revelation. He realized that Kathy wasn't just a character he'd created for Halloween. She was a part of him, a side of his personality that he'd kept hidden, even from himself. The confidence, the charm, the ease with which he'd interacted with others, all of that had come from within him. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to check out my other socials if you want more wonderful content, early access, behind the scenes, and more. All links down below.